folks, give me a few minutes. I was not as prepared as I should have been for this one. How's that mic? Maybe that needs to come a little closer. But yeah, sorry about that. Starting a little later than I would have wanted, but we should be okay. Okay, I will be right back. Get started in just a few, okay? All right. Hey everyone. Apologies for the delay there. So I do a couple different live streams at this point, and this one is the first of its kind. So boy, I'm gonna have to be careful with have the mic on the desk, which is not usually a setup I use. I usually use a headset mic or something similar, but I was ill prepared today, I will say. Normally I get these streams set up kind of the day before, and today in particular, not only did I not do that, but I was a little bit late getting started as well. So yeah, and you know, as always, there's always some sort of technical problem. In this case, my system was trying to update, shut a lot of stuff down that I had set up, so I had to kind of go through and get everything back. So let me bring this overall volume down here just a little bit. It looks like I'm a little hot on the mic, so we're gonna bring that down just a little. It should be good, I think. Okay, so yeah, and then the extra fun part was, well, so yeah, I'm very backlit. I was gonna get a ring light set up, but I didn't have, I couldn't find mine. I don't know where it's off to. I have too many working spaces and things get moved around between them, and sometimes I misplace stuff. So somewhere there's a ring light that would have come in handy today, but I could not locate it in time, and I didn't have enough time to like run over to the studio and dig through stuff. So and then I couldn't I couldn't post an online notification on my Drifting Lines Instagram account, so I did it over on my truck account for those of you who follow me there, because I have two-factor auth set up and none of the codes came through. I had been logged out of that account, and when I went to log in, I can't get any of the codes, so I can't get it into my account. They went to an email address and a phone number, supposedly, both of which I have access to. They're right here. Got neither. So yeah, thanks Meta. Thanks for your and this has not been the first time that's happened. I've seen that behavior a bunch with Meta's two-factor auth in particular, and it drives me bonkers. Because you know, the last thing you want when you're trying to get into an account is to just not have access to it. That's ridiculous. So yeah, so hopefully no one following me there cares too much about this stream, because I couldn't let anyone know. So yeah, today I want to do some work on Dreamstayers, and that's the intention of the stream today. And I apologize for all this table noise. I'll try to keep it to a minimum. The interesting tones, I can't really call it music necessarily because it's pretty atonal, that you're hearing in the background is actually coming live from a synth. It's the, let's see if I can get it raised up here without destroying everything. It's the Pluto synth, so that's what we're hearing in the background. It's a good thing for just like little weird ambient soundscapes, because it's pretty random in the way it approaches its sequencing and things. So like right now it's just kind of stopped. But I'll probably be making little adjustments to it throughout just to keep it interesting. But like that. I'm just changing it has two separate like four note sequences that it kind of merges together in various ways. But anyway, oh jeez, that mic is, let me up the compression on the mic because it's behaving a little unusually. Okay. That should be a little better. Now we shouldn't be clipping so easily. Okay. So anyway, I've had Dreamstayers sitting around as a script and some storyboards for so long, and I've been meaning to get this thing going, and I just have had no time really to work on it, or have made no time to work on it. I suppose there's just always been higher priorities. So it's time. So I really want to get it out there. And let me do one other thing that I just remembered. I need to have the chat like kind of ready and available for me. I just like to verify that those things are all hooked up and working as expected. Yeah, good enough for now. All right, so anyway, this project has been hanging out forever, waiting to get done. So it's time to get it done. And I figured, why not live stream it and be a bit more social about its completion. Plus, I do find that that these live streams do kind of help keep me accountable, and make sure I get the things going that I say I'm going to get going. So, this is actually a layout I started over in Procreate on the iPad, because I had a period of time where I was pretty intent on using that as my primary creative workflow, and I was going to try to get away from Photoshop and stuff. And just to be totally honest, it never fully clicked for me. I guess I have so many ingrained Photoshop habits from so many years of using this program, and just this being my painting workflow, that it just didn't translate well enough for me. So what I want to do, hold on, let me first, we'll go with clipboard, create, let's just make sure this comes over. All right, and then, so I had the idea for this illustration. Now this is actually the cover art, and the idea, this is actually a scene from part of the graphic novel, which I won't give away right now, but let's just say that this creature is interacting with the main character. So this is not the main character or anything. This is an entity that he interacts with. Now, the premise of the story is the main character, Hema, basically sort of unintentionally gets himself stuck in what is called cognition in the story, which is basically just like the realm of the mind, the dream space, essentially. But it's a plane of existence. It has like a sort of physicality to it in a way, and you could think of it as him basically being stuck in a dream, essentially, but one that is an extra dimension on top of reality. So it's overlaid on reality. It can interact with reality, that sort of thing. And all of this stuff is based on things that I think are kind of true in our actual physical reality as well, but in real life, quote unquote. But so the main character basically finds himself sort of stranded in this in cognition, and is trying to sort out what's happening, but as a part of that, there's it's kind of a sort of coming of age type thing, like he matures in the process and all that sort of stuff. Now this is intended to be a series, hence volume 1, but up until now I've only scripted out basically the first few installments. So this was what I essentially decided on for the cover art, and in preparing for it, I kind of made myself this composite. I mean, it's very rough, and as you can see, which is fine. That's sort of the intention. But I made myself this weird sort of composite reference image to work from, and then that is what this imagery here is derived from. And obviously there's a lot of more detail that needs to be filled in and things, but I kind of took just the primary elements of the composition and created references for those, and then that way I can kind of work side by side, I did use these sort of to pattern the actual design. But so this sort of creature is basically like, it's sort of the body of a man in a business suit, but with dragonfly wings and a fish head, and it's sort of just this strange, fantastical creature. And so as a composite, reference image, it looks pretty weird, but you kind of get the idea once it all comes together as a creature. And this scene in particular happens in sort of this rainforesty type dense foliage that springs up at that part in the story. So that's basically all there is to know here. And as far as what to work on today, I was deciding whether or not it would be this, or if I wanted to start on one of the actual pages of the story. But I think I'm gonna work on the cover and just kind of get that sorted, because why not? It's one of those things where I feel like it'll set the tone pretty well for the rest of the work. Although I do tend to approach cover illustration as being a bit more detailed than the page illustration, just because it's your main presentation for the thing. So I potentially a little bit more work into this than than a page layout, but not by much, because yeah, I tend to like a lot of detail, and let's just say that yeah, if you're hoping to gain like Photoshop workflow tips and things from this stream, I can't promise you that's going to happen, because I am extremely manual. Like, I treat Photoshop as if I'm painting an oil painting because that's my background. Like, that's, you know, I grew up doing very physical analog media, and when it came to Photoshop, you know, I've learned it. I know the I know the workflows really well. You know, I can do all sorts of editing and photo manipulation and stuff, and I do enjoy like making crazy photo collage type imagery, and I've done that a lot in the past. But when it comes to digital painting, I tend to use it like a digital canvas. Like, I mean, I have my brushes, but I don't really vary too much there. And I, you know, sometimes if I want certain effects, I'll use special media brushes for that. But by and large, I just work. It's basically like having a canvas that I can paint in extremely fine detail on, and that is generally how I use Photoshop. So you know, if you're well versed in Photoshop and you have your own workflow for it, you might find yourself kind of like screaming at me like, why wouldn't you do it this way? And the answer is because, like, that's just not the head. It's not that I don't know how, it's just not the headspace I tend to be in when I'm working in Photoshop, because my like, sort of what I find the beauty of this program to be is that it gives me extremely granular control over what I'm creating. So but I don't always, I mean, you know, you'll probably see me use like layer masks and things like that, but I mean, and I will, the only other thing that I tend to do is I will do the line art kind of as a overlay to the coloration, but even that, like, sometimes I will find myself accidentally working on the wrong layer, and, you know, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, anyway, so let's get started. So first of all, and I am working, the reason for the screen aspect ratio being like, it looks like I'm on an old CRT, is because I practically am. I'm on a really old, let's see, this would have been about 2010, I think I bought this. So it's like about a 15-year-old Cintiq 21UX. But I mean, other than, you know, actual nits kind of brightness of the screen, it works great, and it still looks fine. I mean, it's not Retina, but who cares? I mean, for this kind of work, I don't really need that. So, and I do love, like, all of the sort of, you know, shortcuts, like being able to just, you know, zoom with the touch strips on the side and everything. The way I'm set up here and like the location of the mic and stuff, it is a little bit in my way for utilizing some of this stuff. So we'll see if I'm a little more restricted than usual, but yeah. And yeah, I have, like, you know, shortcut buttons set up for panning and all that sort of stuff. And that's the only other thing. It's probably, like, the newer Cintiqs, I think, are less laggy. My partner has one that she does all her photo editing on, but yeah, for my purposes, for what I'm doing, this is really all I need. So now I need to try to remember. The one feature that I don't use all that often is like the 2-up sort of view, and now I need to remember how to do that, because I want this and the document side by side here. There we go. That's right. side. Oh well. How do I switch that? So if I do this and arrange to up vertical, does that get me? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so that's what I want. I am left-handed, so it does sort of impact how I work in these environments. Oop, wrong way. So, yeah, I'm not one to work all that directly off of, like I did use this sort of reference design that this really rough kind of composite thing. I did use that for, basically achieving proportions and things, but as far as actually doing the work here, this is going to be more about like just a side-by-side reference at this point. So of course there are differences in I think I'm going to want a zoom level somewhere between those two. So but because I'm not going to be copying this composite thing verbatim, I'm just going to be sort of using it as a light reference. Yeah, something like that. That should work. Just making some slight changes to this. Okay. So, where do we want to start here? I think I'm going to start at like a central focus point, like this fish's eyeball. And And what I'll usually do in these cases is I might start with some like kind of generally referencing the imagery, but then once I get the basics down, you know, I'm gonna start thinking about, okay, well that's what the original looked like, but what about, like, now we're sorry, I've been having some bizarre technical issues all day. Like, for some reason now, even though it's actually physically connected, my keyboard keeps dropping its connection. It's been a strange technical day today. I don't know what the deal is, but anyway, so a lot of times I'll kind of start with just something to get it in the ballpark, and then I'll start from there thinking about, okay, but how would this, you know, really actually look in the environment that it's in, and then I'll make adjustments from there, because it's I find it to be a little bit easier to conform stuff in that way once I have kind of a general look and feel that I'm happy with, and kind of moving forward with that. To be honest, I don't even know. Let's see, what brush do I even have selected right now? Yeah, where's my brush palette? Boy, I thought I had all my brushes installed in here, but I do not by a long shot. I'm gonna have to get that fixed. This is nothing. This is like just I think this is just basic Photoshop. No, anyway. Yeah, that's way too big. I have a million brushes, most of them by Kyle Webster, but they appear not to be installed right now, so I'm gonna have to fix that. But that's not really a good use of stream time, in my opinion, so now is not the time. So we'll make do with what we can with these sort of minimal brushes. I have to admit, for some reason, I don't know why, but this particular live stream, I did find myself resisting a bit, and I don't really know why that is. I think that has a little bit to do with why I didn't set up as well as I should have. See what we can do with just these. A lot of times I can get pretty decent results with just these really basic brushes. If I'm careful with how I apply them. It also is the sort of thing where I do get out of practice with Photoshop if I don't use it often enough, and I probably should have had just like a kind of refresher session with just by myself before I went live with this, because it had, like, I've been using it but not in this capacity as often lately, so probably should have done that, but that's okay. That the stuff that Pluto was doing was a little too frantic. Slow it down here. This mic is so sensitive, you can hear all my screen scratching. Noticing that my sort of dimensions are quite a bit off here as I'm looking at this. Let's sort of redefine that fisheye a little bit. Let me zoom out just a hair. Yeah, that front's a little pointy. It certainly doesn't have to be exact, because, I mean, this is just a made-up creature anyway, but, you know, it's nice to have it somewhat close. I think what I'll do I'm just gonna go ahead and just kind of you know, at the moment, I'm actually just working all on one layer. Corrections be darned. When it comes to Photoshop, I have a tendency to use, it's like it's a digital tool, but I use it kind of like it's not a digital tool. I think that's a little bit how I sort of maintain some of my, I don't know, I find, oops, I do like having the ability to undo, though. That is a benefit. Because that was far too dark. Still too dark. Let's go with hardness is 0. Let's have a 4. I'm gonna have to go with a lesser opacity. Take the flow down a little bit as well. Okay. A lot of times I'll just like really kind of rough in the colors and things in certain areas. How's everybody doing out there? have to figure out, the one thing I still haven't looked into for these streams is, you know, not generating my own music for them, or if you want to even call this music, my own ethereal sounds or whatever, but because it would be nice to have a little something going that had maybe more of a beat to it or something, but I have not looked into what libraries of music are usable for that sort of thing and if they're any good. So for now we have what we have. And in case any of you joined late, don't expect this to be like a really great Photoshop tips and tricks kind of stream, because I, as I've said a couple times now, I basically use Photoshop as if I'm painting with oil paints. It's not, I mean, I can do more complicated stuff with it, but in these circumstances I keep it extremely simple, and it makes it tedious and laborious and whatnot. But the reason I do it is I find it kind of maintains that sort of, I don't know, it has that rougher quality to it. When I say rougher, I just mean a little bit more like an actual oil painting, if I treat it like one. It doesn't get that, because I there's so many digital works out there that I just feel are a little too glossy for my like. They just have this sheen to them, which is, you know, it's its own thing. It's fine, but it's not really what I like when it comes to, like, stylistically. It's just not my thing. So I find if I go too heavy on a more digital workflow with Photoshop, I kind of lose that. I don't even know what to call it. It's more just an aesthetic thing, but yeah. So a lot of times, I'd spend a lot of time just kind of roughing stuff in, and then I just like I treat it sort of like I'm doing an underpainting first, and then eventually work in to the more detailed stuff. But that can lead to a slow and maybe not the most exciting process, but we shall see. I've never chosen to, live stream these things before. I've never really let anyone in on my process. And part of it is because my process is rather laborious. But I actually like the results of that, so. But yeah, I always say these streams are more fun if we interact, so do feel free to drop in the chat. Let me know where you're watching from. When you're just getting started with this stuff like I am, sometimes the audience is extremely small and everyone seems very shy, so it's okay. But I encourage you to use your voice or your fingers, whichever you however you want to think of that, and communicate. It's a lot more fun that way. Anyway, so I'm just kind of very, very broadly roughing in some coloration here for these There he is. And yeah, for any of you who joined a little late, the right-hand side of the screen, I mean, pretty obviously, is just like a very rough reference that I threw together for myself originally for this image. We're basically working on the cover art here for Dreamstayers, for volume 1 anyway. I decided to start here instead of starting in on page 1, just because to me this kind of, you know, in a lot of ways the cover sets the tone for the thing, and I feel like you can do it first, you could do it last, or, you know, you can really do it whenever, but for me, I like the idea of using it to set the tone for the work I'm gonna do on it here. But yeah, I haven't been working in Photoshop in a digital painting capacity for quite a while. So like I sat down and discovered my brushes aren't installed and all sorts of fun things like that. But gotta start somewhere, right? So that was a little darker than I was anticipating. So it's the sort of thing that, like, once I get my sea legs again, because it's been a while, you'll start to see this stuff speed up a bit, but for now it's going to be a gradual thing, a gradual process. Whenever I do hatching, like in this case, it's, I'm not doing hatching in a it's not like I'm trying to actually shade anything here. I'm just kind of filling in very roughly. But anytime I do hatching like that, where I'm just changing direction midway and stuff, I always hear my middle school art teacher in my head. She used to refer to that as the chicken scratch world of art. like messy hatching type stuff, which stuck with me, that's for sure. And I think she only said it like once or twice. So it really, that apparently made an impression, because I definitely got what she was getting at with it. But in this case, this really isn't going to be by any means the final coloration. I'm just trying to rough in some tones and things. So I could go with a larger brush and smooth some things in that way, but nah. Why would I want to make things easier on myself? Who wants to do that? Not me. Now, one of the things that I'm gonna have to think a little bit more broadly about is gonna be these fins and what the lighting on these fins is gonna look like in this situation, and the fish in general, because in the original photo it looks like it's maybe sort of a top-down flash kind of situation or something. It's a very directional light, and in the actual scene here, and as I'm pulling out and kind of seeing how some of that fish's coloration affects things, I think I might not stick to the actual reference image for the coloration, because I'm remembering that I had originally pictured this fish to be much more in the sort of goldfishy type color range, where it's not so much of the purples and blues. So I might pull that out, actually, now that I'm looking a little bit more at the wider scope of things here. But yeah, I do have to think about, because there's going to be like heavier foliage around the upper parts of the image here, kind of interfering a little bit with the logo, like wrapping into it and stuff to some degree. But I have to decide where like the lighting sources are, because we've got the moon in the background, obviously very, very large. So there is going to be some highlights, like some highlighted edges and things. But then I have to decide where, like, because we probably also want, an additional light source that would be illuminating the front side of things. So I think I would probably want that almost like campfire light, like something soft glowing up directional from the ground, but like a little bit diffuse. So that's probably what I'm gonna aim for there. But yeah, actually I'm gonna pull out a little bit. Whoops, wrong way. Pull out a little bit and kind of tone down some of these purples and things. And so yeah, I do, as you'll see, I tend to, I treat this just as I would an oil painting. Now, with an oil painting, I would have been much more careful about, approaching initial layers and things. I wouldn't just be plopping color down, and I'd be giving it a little bit more thought, because this environment is more pliable in that regard. But it's still a similar approach where, like, I want to change the color, I just layer over top of it, because I like that blending. I like keeping elements of the original layers, because I always have, and this was something I was forgetting when I first started working today, is I always keep my opacity down for these types of things, because that way I can continue to layer. And I guess for any of you who are not familiar with my overall artwork, I probably should have shown an example of the direction this is going to go in, but you can find some of that stuff on it's drifting.lines on Instagram. There's a small collection of some of my previous digital artworks and stuff on there. I haven't updated that account in a very long time. I'm going to be working on doing that, especially as I get some of this material worked through here, but yeah. that's better. I wasn't really liking the overall effect of those purples in this particular context. So there's going to be this fin down here. And sort of underbelly, other fin. And again, this is all just going to be very much roughing these colors in and such, just to get kind of a visual sense. And yeah, so once we start getting into this area here, we're probably going to be more of a general kind of yellow. Territory here. Yeah, okay. Don't need spam in my chat. Bear with me here for a moment, folks. We're having to reprioritize some screen layouts and things so that I can fix some stuff. Situated here. Okay. All because of some spam in the chat. Thanks a lot for that. Now I have to sort out my chat management in the middle of a stream. Great. Fun times. Guess I should have been working from there to begin with. Well, whatever. Looks like I'm stuck with that for the time being. Okay, great. I'm not gonna be able to do that right now while I'm live, so we're stuck. But yeah, let's. You know what? We're gonna do this now, I think. How about this? Okay. I'm just gonna take the chat off the screen until I can sort out keeping the spam out of it. How about that? No free advertising for those folks. Not into it. Okay, back to what I was doing. And now Photoshop is not working as expected. This is fun. Somewhere there's a dialogue that I can't see. What is going on? Fantastic. Is that dialogue going? There it is. Okay, found it. Not too much either, but we can pull back out of it. It should be all right. Okay. Just fix one other thing here. All right. So let's think about this here. So very, very roughly colored fish head. Now if we are going to, let's go with sort of a medium gray here for a moment. I'm gonna bring oops. So I think at this point, I'm gonna go with consolidate all the tabs. There we go. I don't currently need that reference anymore because now I'm at a point where I feel like I can start thinking through this in terms of what it should actually look like. So now one thing I notice, let's go back to this sort of orange here. I don't think this would actually be quite so, like it's almost creased. Just gonna kind of go over that. Again, still just, this is all just roughing in very, very roughly. Just trying to get all the shading and everything about where I would expect it to be. And let's go a little darker now. So under here, this would, you know, got this fish protruding from where the neck should be, really. So you know, what would that look like? Well, it would be darker under here, that's for sure. So we'll start there. You might see me squinting a lot in this phase because I'm like, if you squint when you're working like this, you can kind of fuzz out the details as if you were smudging everything, so you can kind of get a better sense of where the colors will fall in the long run, and whether or not things are transitioning smoothly and stuff. Not sure exactly what I was envisioning all these lumpy appendages to be. Might have to calm those down a little bit. I feel like it would be more like that in there roughly. Just gonna kind of shade these down so they're more background than anything. Now right now, obviously, this fish is looking very slippery. So it's like a slick fish, but that's because I would bring detail for scales and things in once I have the overall shape and sense of things honed in a little bit better. But I can start to sort of indicate some of those things here. I just had the thought, because I have albums out there released on various streaming services, and they're all, self-released. It's not something I would actually be interested in doing, but I just thought, I wonder what happens if I play my own music that I own the rights to, and am, I'm basically the publishing company that released it, so I wonder what happens if I, would I get a copyright strike against myself, or would I have to pay myself royalties for streaming my music? Wonder how that works. Not that I want to sit here and listen to my own music the whole time, I do not, but it would be pretty funny to do that. It would be not very funny if I did that and then had to pay myself for my streams. That would just be ridiculous. But just adding some scaly texture in here, just very roughly, just to kind of give it a sense of not being quite so slick. I feel like that's gonna help me consider some of the lighting and things a little bit better. If we zoom out, something is something's a little fishy here. Ha ha ha. But actually, though, trying to think, let's bring the size of this up just a little bit. last stroke was a bit much, but that's alright. So, I mean, if you have an orange fish for a head, I'm guessing even if you have human hands, they're going to be orange, like your fish head, right? That's what I would think. So we'll give some color to that to start. Check something Alright, let's zoom out and get some context. Why are we on the scroll? Okay. I should probably... Well... Should be using a larger brush for this because I'm really just trying to get in a general layer of tone here to kind of distinguish it from the vest and things. stats look a little ragged, but it's a start. Okay. Alright, folks. I'm gonna take a little break. Should be back in 5 or 10 minutes. All right. Hey, folks. All right. Gotta love our world of algorithms. Seems like Instagram may have buried my going live link because I posted a story and literally no one has seen it, which is just, shall we say, unusual, which is interesting. Should be over here, not over there. This should be here. Oh, hello. Sorry, I just pulled the chat up, so I see your words. 1 second. Now that there's actually someone contributing something worthwhile to the chat, we'll bring this back up here. Yeah, it looks like I just checked my stories on Instagram and it looks like maybe what? Glad I think what that it's a beneficial contribution to the chat. I mean, hey, it's nice to have someone participating, so yeah. Oh, look at that. It is very delayed. Sorry, anyway, yeah, I was looking at Instagram and it looks like literally 0 people have seen the story I posted saying I was going live 2 hours ago, and that's incredibly unusual, so I assume for some reason the algorithm just buried it, and that's the kind of day I'm having. So, yeah, fun times. How's the stream looking in general? Is it holding up? Yeah, it's okay, but thank you. It's black? Hang on a second. Seriously? What on earth is going on? Alright, but wait, you see me though? So strange. Hold on, I don't know what it's doing. It's like... Oh, something weird is going on. It's like wherever the cursor goes, it's redrawing, but up until that, let me check this out. I can slowly reveal the image. Okay. I think that's OBS being very strange. I don't know what's happening right now. Give me 1 second to try to fix this. Alright, so what I'm gonna try doing, because based on OBS, oh, you know what? Hold on. So first of all, let me do that, because that should have been brought in, but it didn't. Okay, there, maybe that will fix everything. Let's see, once the chat's showing, then I know I'm okay. Are you seeing the chat on your end? Because it's very delayed on my end here. There we go. Okay, cool. Sweet. All right. Well, thanks for popping in. Okay, so yeah, this is as far as I got so far. It's very just kind of like roughed in, essentially, but you know, it's a start. So, and things are very choppy on my system at the moment, so let me just do this. I'm realizing I have some pretty heavy software open. That may be not helping. Don't know why terminal's running. Those ones we need. And I think we should probably quit Xcode too. Gee whiz. Hello, our spawn. Oh no, you're fine. I don't think it's the bandwidth that's the problem, but okay. Well, thanks for dropping in. It was fun to have 2 seconds of conversation with someone. Okay. Love you too. Enjoy lunch and things. Sure, I'll take a sandwich. A sandwich. I don't know when I'll eat it, but thank you. I will accept your kind offer. Okay. So see you soon. think I want this umbrella to be red. Feels like a good color for such things. Go with some sort of a cherry-ish, mahogany-ish kind of handle here. Again, just roughing in. Just the general details here. Oops, too far. Let's spend a little time on our snake friend here. And I'm going to go ahead and go back to a 2-up layout. And over here, pull our snake friend into view. Do the same on this side. Start just by adding some colors in on that tongue, blues and purples. So right now, just basically filling in the patterning here. Because I had done some initial outlining and stuff just to get a feel for where these marks should be. And that's what I'm going to use here to sort of lay in the different colors. So maybe we'll see if we can get this guy kind of worked out a little bit, and then see what time it is. I don't know, I've been scheduling these streams to be 4-hour streams. Sometimes I end them a little early. This is the first one of these for like the painting and stuff. I will say that the other streams, you know, I'm more active. I'm not sitting in one place for so long, so it's a little bit harder to go a full just 4 hours just sitting here without moving. Find myself wanting to get up and move around a lot more. So might not last the full 4 hours. I might end up ending a little early on this one, but we'll see. I like that the Twitch app is sending me notifications for streams to watch while I'm live and streaming. Like, you would think there would be some association to avoid doing that sort of thing, but I guess not. It's like, yeah, well, let me get right on that. Little snake buddy. He's a snake friend of ours. Little snake buddy. He's a snake friend of Now, I wonder, do I want to make him the same color as this reference image, or should he be like blue and black or something like that? Don't mind me, that's just my humming chant here. Pluto synth is really nice for some weird droney soundscapes. I like that I could just set it up and let it do its thing, and it just kind of gives me background music the whole time. It's always different. But yeah, as I said earlier, it would be nice to have something with a little bit more of a groove to it. But, you know, on short notice, it's not too bad. So again, just kind of roughing in stuff here. I think I'm going to start with yellow and then maybe play around with some other colorations for this guy. But let's get the color in there first, and then I can start laying in some different tones and try to get a feel for what actually works. Let's see. Go with something that's a little too orange. Let's pull that into more of a golden kind of territory there. Again, just everything at this stage is just rough. Rough coloration, rough detail. Very sketchy in the way I'm approaching the fills and lines and things. Just all some rough stuff here. That little tip of the nose is a bit more like that in the reference anyway. We'll keep it that way, so. Now, alright, so first of all, let's go in a little darker here around the eyeball. darker in around the edges. And then a little bit more on the white highlights. There. And there. Now I am going to have to also think about those highlights because, again, we're dealing with a bunch of images with a bunch of disparate lighting. So, you know, in the end, will that highlight make sense for the image in the scene? Yeah, maybe, maybe not. Okay. What's it doing? so let's see. I feel like our little snake friend here might benefit from being a more ridiculous sort of color. Although, well, let's just see. A little bit further back than that. There we go. That one. Let's just play around here a little bit. I want to see if we get into kind of a magenta territory. What does that look like? Might match the flower above him a little too much, but I feel like it's worth a shot. Because I did plan to keep that coloration of that flower just because I did like it. So if we just kind of do a bit of that, and then just want to get a really rough sense here for because the idea is that, especially in this particular scene where this all occurs, I mean this land is supposed to be pretty bizarre, so I mean again it's sort of the dream world, so things don't have to necessarily make sense there, and a lot of times they don't. So if we take a much more commonly colored snake and make him a little bit bizarre. I mean, I'm sure there's probably, well, actually I'm not sure, but it would not surprise me if there was some sort of tropical kind of rainforesty breed of snake that was magenta and probably would indicate that it was very poisonous in some way, but I don't know that I've ever encountered a species that goes quite that far with its coloring, so it's bad. Let's just see. And obviously if this turns out to look like it's maybe a really bad idea, then we'll back it off. But I don't know that it's going to be. I think I might be okay with this. let's see. Let's get a sense for how that works. I always go the wrong way. Okay, it's okay. It's a start, put it that way. But I already see one thing I would like to adjust, which is I would like a bit of bluish violet kind of coloration at places here. I don't want to take over with that color, but I would like to introduce it. So let's say maybe something a little bit more like this. Let's check what that's looking like if we back out. Going the wrong way again. Maybe it should be a rainbow snake-ish. You know, not necessarily like full on, but because I do like the idea of keeping some of this coloration in here too. Let's go into like a golden, add some of that back. Maybe I can kind of get the effect like as if, depending on how the light's hitting it, maybe it changes color a bit. Like those iridescent films and things that reflect prism colors back, or trying to think of an actual animal that has coloration like that. I guess some fish or sea life maybe sometimes, but by that same token, we would kind of need some red in here at points too. How's that looking? Let's pull back on that a bit. Yeah, I think that's the right feel for that guy. Kind of almost iridescent-y sort of thing. He needs some electric blue or something. Some highlights. But yeah, it's getting in the right ballpark, I think. Let's see. About what color do I want? It's always hard to land on this. Maybe in this territory zone. Something like that. Yeah, that's kind of cool. Yeah, and then if we go into more of like a iridescent green in here, yeah, I think that starts getting the feel that I want, where it's like, depending on how the light hits. Something like that. Okay. So we could probably, just for this section here, go a little bit larger with our brush tip, fill in. So, what I'm likely to do here is kind of start with that kind of base yellow, because that's where I started with the rainbow. So kind of fill that in and then come back with the other colors to like kind of rainbowize this guy. Yeah, I don't know why. Like all morning when I've been doing this, I've been just tapping the color switcher instead of just hitting the X key, because that's the keyboard shortcut to do the same thing, and for some reason I've been taking the long route all day and I don't know why. But never too late, right? So I'm starting to feel like I need a break and to stretch a bit and stuff, so I'll probably rough some of this in, and then I might stop the stream at that point, just because kind of need a full-fledged break for a bit. It's a lot of sitting when you're doing this kind of stuff, and I'm not the best at just sitting these days. I usually want to get up and move around if I can, at least periodically. It's a little weird in general. And again, in case anyone's watching this going, why? The reason I do things this way is, as opposed to like, you know, for instance, like just kind of filling the region with this color, I could do that and that would save me a lot of time and maybe some hand cramps. But I find that I just, when I work that way, I have a hard time getting away from like kind of the glossy digital feel of the whole thing, whereas if I am painstaking about it like this, it ends up feeling much more organic in the end in terms of the end result. So you might think it's crazy, but for me it's worth it, even though it does mean that the whole process takes significantly longer. But you know, that's just sometimes we have to suffer for our art. Within reason, I guess, you know. Occasionally the Pluto will kind of get almost stuck like that, so I had to make some adjustments so that it would break out of that loop it was in. So again, just as before, just kind of roughing in these colors here. Not doing anything in the way of texture for the scales or anything yet. A bit here, take a look. Whoops. Sorry. So yeah, so starting with yellow as the base for everything here, and then I'm gonna fill in Probably do the magenta on top of that like I did before. And start working in from there. I feel like I need to stretch and stand and not really a place I'm satisfied ending though, that's the only thing. So maybe what we do is significantly increase brush size. Just kind of come in here very quickly. In this sort of base yellow. Whoops. Oh, that was a very long stroke, so if I undo that, that's not really going to be great. So let's do it like this. Okay. So we'll keep roughing in here. Rough. Alright. So we've got that. And then swap size down significantly and now come in. Sorry, I had to, when it's just that one tone over and over again, I really need to interrupt it. I should probably change how it's patched a little bit so that it's not as prone to that, but that's all right for now. Maybe it's not all right for now. I guess, is that just the feedback? Is that what's happening there? I think for this, since I'm just kind of roughing in these sections. I want to go with a slightly heavier opacity. Excuse me. Okay, sorry. So again, this isn't going to be the final sort of, you know, approach for this. This is just getting things roughed in, getting a sense for the coloration and everything. Obviously starting with just this sort of roughed in yellow and black, and then we'll get into the rainbowy kind of stuff. But probably not going to get all the way there in the stream, because I'm going to stop by 2 at the latest, 2 p.m. Eastern, which is about 25 minutes from now. So see how far I can get this fleshed out before then. Now let's see here, we're looking at, okay. Looks like I might have filled this in a little differently than it was intended, but that's alright. I like that ish. That's fine. And okay. Gonna go in real rough on these here. That. I think maybe what I'll try to do for next week for any background music, unless I can find some suitable music that's royalty free or something that I'm allowed to stream on here, I might just come up with some kind of ambient patch on the modular and let that do its thing the whole time. I mean, that's kind of what the Pluto is in the first place, but it's a little bit more static in terms of what it, like I could definitely set something up with a little bit more variation on the modular. So that's probably what I'll do for next week. Go in with these and I'll consider whether or not I want to add those highlights, because again, we're not really sure if the lighting in this image will be correct or ideal for our scenario here, which is a much darker scene. So, you know, just starting with the reference to kind of give me the lay of the land, and then I got to make all those lighting decisions and things separate of what the reference image is giving me. This is really just to kind of create a map. I'm not trying to copy verbatim. Just do a quick, oops, just kind of come in here with, just for now, come in with some of these highlights just to see how things look when I do this. Obviously not adding as much detail as the actual image would have in these areas, just some real rough stuff for my own reference as I'm continuing to decide on coloration and things. Now there is still this far corner that I have to fill in here. But Alright, so then here we'll go back down to black. And we'll just kind of sketch in some stuff down here based on the reference. Okay. Alright, so that's roughed in. So we've got to start there. Now, is it a, you know... So the next step, which I'm not going to get to right now because we've got 10 minutes left, would be to start adding the sort of what's the word I want? Kind of the rainbow coloration, but there's a word I'm looking for that's escaping me at the moment. But yeah, that kind of reflective coloring on the snake. So, you know, obviously we've got the base tonality in there to start with, with the yellow as the base, and then I would start kind of filling in probably the magenta next, and then into the oranges and reds, and then add the blues as sort of the highlight afterwards. So that will be the next steps. But it's a start, and yeah, once I rough in those flowers and the lily, which is not present in the reference image obviously, but it did come from its own sort of reference. Once I get that stuff worked in, then I can start, kind of treating it as the overall scene and working through that way. But yeah, if you hung in there this long, thanks. Welcome to my extremely laborious digital painting process. But I think it's worth it because it comes out looking pretty organic, and my goal is really just to be able to do digital artwork where you don't necessarily look at it and immediately assume it's digital. But that does require a different approach and kind of sidestepping some of the conveniences that Photoshop offers. So it is a painstaking process oftentimes, but I find it to be worth it. So there we go. Got a little progress. And I don't think this is the sort of thing where I'm just going to hold off on working until the next stream. I will probably try to get us to, a starting point where there's some more progress there between now and next week. So, on that note, we're getting about up to the close here, so I am going to look at signing off. One thing I have been doing on all of my streams lately, obviously these are going online, so audience is potentially global. If you do not live in the United States, this would not really be that relevant to you. But for those of us who are here, I'm personally pretty concerned about the things that are going on in this country right now. And if you are too, then I would say let's please not stay silent. Obviously, there has been some sort of insinuation that there's going to be a drawdown of the efforts in Minnesota, but I'm of the opinion that I'll believe it when I see it, kind of thing. That feels more like a publicity thing than an actuality. Either that or they're just going to move off to a different state and do it somewhere else. But yeah, I don't, it's not like they hired all these resources just to lay them off a month later. I don't think that this is the end of this, and I think we need to continue to peacefully stand up to it and fight it. All of the stuff that's been going on with this administration, I have issues with. Now, I'm not trying to alienate anyone here with this stream. I try not to get political on these things, but I think this time it's getting kind of dire. And so if you have issues with this, like I do, let's not stay silent. Use your voice. And also, I think voting with dollars goes a long way. I have been participating and will continue to participate in the resist and unsubscribe movement, so I killed my subscription to a bunch of tech products, and I intend to keep it that way. I don't, this was intended as kind of like a month-long movement, but I don't intend to stop there, because until I see any indication that these companies have just like ceased supporting these efforts, I'm not going back. So that meant killing Amazon Prime. It meant killing off my ChatGPT subscription. It meant killing off my Microsoft 365 subscription. I mean, I'm in the tech world, so I have a lot of subscriptions to those things, and I just went through and wiped them all out. And there's alternatives, and the other thing that I'm getting pretty concerned about here is the sort of increasing surveillance stuff that's happening, and with flock safety and companies that are providing similar services and things. I think that's also something of a concern. So I'm going to be moving. I had been using Nest Cams. I'm going to be moving all that stuff to closed circuit, in-home stuff. It's really a shame. It's kind of like you get something like technological progress that can open a lot of doors, and instead it seems like it just always gets abused, and it's really a bummer. And also just with all of the like crazy deportation stuff that's happening in the concentration camps and everything, like I just had a rosier picture of the world, and I had thought that we were moving to a better place in terms of inclusion and equality and things, and boy was I wrong. So it's a little bit of shame. But it's a little bit depressing is kind of what I meant to say. More than a little bit, to believe that we're in a state like that where things are improving, and I was looking at that like globally. I thought that was kind of happening, and nope. So we gotta stand up to this stuff. It's not okay. I mean, we gotta do it peacefully, but yeah. So anyway, that's my public service announcement. I've been doing one of those on every stream, so if you're not a fan, just plug your ears. I think it's super important, and the argument that I'm going to continue to make is any peaceable, respectful person, meaning like if you're minding your own business out there and you're not forcing your beliefs on other people and you're just kind of living your life, I think anyone in that position should be left alone to, no one should be enduring fear or experiencing fear for them, in the first place, over what I consider to be just basic traits of human existence. So like, the color of your skin, your gender identity, your, spirituality or religious preferences, your sexual preferences, things like that. That's just all like, if you're just living your life, leave them all. Everybody needs to be left alone to be able to have their preferences there. Because there's no harm in any of those things when it comes down to it. So, anyway, that's my spiel. But thanks for tuning in, except for the spam bots or whatever happened earlier. No thanks for that, but and we will be back next week. And I have multiple live streams during the week, but they all have different content. So on Monday, if you check out my DIY channel, I will be, and that's under my electronic music project, which is Truck. Currently building a modular synthesizer system from Clacktronics. It's a build your own modular kit. I will be picking up again on that on Monday, same time, different channel. So it's Truck DIY, so Truck_DIY on YouTube and on Twitch. You can find all this stuff on my Linktree if you go to my Instagram accounts. And Yeah, and then on Wednesday I'll be doing a music stream. So I do Monday, Wednesday, Friday live streams. And for now I'm just gonna follow this format and see which ones of these feel like they have the most participation, and then I will probably focus it down, but we shall see. So yeah, that's it for this week. Sorry for the technical difficulties and things, but again, this is my first week using this setup here, because my sort of painting studio and everything is just obviously in our guest bedroom here. So yeah, I had to set up everything newly, and I should have done it in advance, and I just waited until this morning and kludged it all together, but you know, it worked. So alrighty, that's it for this week. Thanks, folks. See you in the next one. Take care out there, stay safe, and don't stay